Hi everyone, welcome back. It's Boone. In March of 2020, I got my gender confirmation surgery, otherwise known as sexual reassignment surgery, bottom surgery. There's like a million names for it, whatever you want to call it. That's what I got. And I vlogged the entire experience. I will put links to those videos in the description if you want to see what that all kind of looked like from a very raw perspective, me just filming on a phone right after getting out of surgery, as well as the moments leading up to it. The entire experience for the first week and a half is on camera. I recorded it and it's on my YouTube channel. Afterwards, I also posted a couple of follow-up videos. I did one about a month and a half after I got the surgery where I just talked about how I was feeling at that time and what the recovery had been like. And then 1 year after I got the surgery, I did a video updating what it had all been like 1 year after. I made those vlogs because to me it was crucially important that the entire journey without any censorship was shown to people so that they could know what they were getting themselves into if it's a surgery that they're going to get. I just wanted everyone to be as educated as possible. Before I got the surgery, I watched a ton of different vlogs from different wonderful YouTubers who shared their experiences, and it was very helpful for me to get an idea of what the recovery process might be like, even though it does differ for every person. If you decide to go back and watch those videos, I will warn you that they're a little intense. They're not gruesome or graphic. I don't show you any of the gory stuff, obviously, but there are clips of me when I'm in intense pain, and you can hear and see me crying, and it's kind of a lot, so just know what you're getting yourself into. So I've covered this topic a lot, but what I wanted to do with this video is go more into detail on how the experience has influenced my life and impacted me as a whole, rather than just the first few weeks and months and the physical recovery process. I want to tell you more about what this surgery meant to me, what it was like getting it, and how it affects me now. Starting at the beginning, I first knew I wanted this surgery when I was probably 8 or 9 years old, maybe younger. I don't remember exactly when it was. I was watching this show called Soap that my dad showed me and my brothers, and Billy Crystal's character on the show gets what was then known as a sex change operation. I did not know what exactly that was. I had never heard of that at the time, but my understanding of it was that this character was going to go from being a boy to being a girl through some medical procedure. And that, to me, blew my mind and was the most desirable thing that I had ever witnessed. I didn't know if this was a real procedure or if it was some fictional thing made for the show and for that character. All I knew was that I wanted it very badly, and it stuck with me throughout the rest of my life, clearly. At this point, I had already been suffering from gender dysphoria for quite a while, and I've talked about that a lot on my channel. I just didn't have the vocabulary to really explain it. I didn't have the words gender dysphoria. I did not have the terminology for what it meant to be transgender or anything like that. I was just dealing with these feelings all alone. So as I watched that show and I saw this and I thought, oh my god, I want this crazy operation, I never told anyone because I didn't even understand how I could. Fast forward maybe 5 years later, and my mom shows me this show called I Am Jazz. This is very shortly after, I guess, I came out, even though it was in a very non-traditional way, but I had finally discovered that the word transgender was fitting to me, and I learned about gender dysphoria and started applying it to my own experiences. My mom shows me this show, and it's this girl, Jazz. If you haven't seen I Am Jazz, it's a really wonderful documentary series on this woman, Jazz Jennings, and it chronicles her life as a transgender woman, and it starts when she's in middle school, I believe, and now she's, I think, 21. She was on hormone replacement therapy, and had I not been told that she was transgender, I would have assumed that she was a cis girl. That was actually the genesis of my learning about hormone replacement therapy in the first place, and how one typically goes about a medical and social transition. As soon as I realized that HRT existed and that it was a thing that I could actually do, I knew that I wanted it. And fast forward, after I go through all the psychological steps and leaps and bounds that it takes to medically start that process, I get on HRT and the ball starts rolling. In the beginning, I had a lot to think about before I could ever even grasp the idea of surgery. First of all, you would have had to have gone through HRT for at least a year, I believe it is, before you're allowed to get it, and you have to be at least 18, at least where I live. I had just turned 16 at the time, and I had just started HRT, so I didn't really have a whole lot of time to give it thought, but once I eventually did, which was probably about 6 months after the HRT process had started, it became abundantly clear that I wanted the surgery definitively. As I said, I already knew that I wanted it when I was a kid, but it was different thinking of it back then when I didn't even know if it was real, to then know it was real and actually think of it as a physical, tangible surgery that I would have to undergo. And in fact, the only hesitation that I had was the fact that it was a surgery, and at that point I had never had any surgeries in my life, and I was terribly afraid of going under general anesthesia, so it was very spooky to me, but as soon as I really gave it any thought, it became very clear to me that the fear of surgery was not nearly as freaky as the fear of living the rest of my life with these parts that made me deeply uncomfortable. It took me quite a while to actually get the surgery date because I had to get 2 different letters from a therapist, or maybe it was 3, I don't even remember now. I think I got at least 3 because 1 didn't work because my insurance was very picky about what specifically they had to say in the letter, and something that I haven't talked about on this channel before is that I have OCD, and that was a mental health issue that got in the way of me getting the letter because it was quite severe at the time. I was also dealing with some other mental health issues that made the entire process very laboring. In the months leading up to me getting the surgery and scheduling it, I was at university. It was my first and only term at university, and it was incredibly taxing on me. Prior to that, I had been in online school, so I never had to actually go to school physically, so that was a lot different. The commute there and back totaled to about 3 hours, and I was going 5 days a week, so it was incredibly difficult. I had also gone through some really difficult stuff that summer that I was still getting over and recovering from, and I was severely underweight, so my mental health was getting really, really bad. I went to see my endocrinologist that, I think it was September, maybe it was October, and we realized just how underweight that I was. Oh, my parents I'm sure already knew, but I realized from a medical standpoint how dangerous things were and how bad I was doing and how much I needed to get better in order for me to actually get this surgery. So luckily, thankfully, I was able to get more on track, and I started eating more and I started treating my body with a little bit more care, and by the time the term was over, I had gotten my surgery date, I was weighing a healthy weight, and by the time the holidays were around, I was actually doing better mentally than I probably ever had been in my life at that point, at least since I was really, really little. I was baking food that I was eating, I was enjoying spending time at home, I was resting, I had finished all my school, I knew the surgery was coming up, I was doing really great. So then I get the surgery, and as physically challenging as it was and as painful as it was physically, I get through it, I get home, the pandemic starts right around that time, which was its own craziness, but despite all of that, I was going home to rest for an extended period of time, which I needed very, very badly. And just like how I was saying at Christmas time, this was one of the best I had ever been doing, one of the best periods of time in my life for my mental health. I remember taking a lot of pictures of myself at that time, and I wasn't wearing makeup, but I felt more confident in my physical appearance than I ever had before. Right after surgery, I just felt this physical and mental weight lifted off of me that was so indescribable. I could try my best to tell you what it felt like, but really words can't do it justice. I knew how much the surgery meant to me going into it, and I knew that it was deeply important to me, but until it actually happened, I could not have possibly comprehended just how significant it was. Even now, even almost 2 years after having it, I just still think about the fact that it's done and that I have a vagina, and it blows my mind, because for so many years in my life, I thought that was impossible, and I thought I was going to be forced to live in this way that was really not sustainable for me. And to be completely honest with you, if I couldn't have had the surgery, I don't think I would be here right now making this video. Those first few months after getting home, I felt more myself and more comfortable and happy and relaxed and confident than I had ever felt in my life. I remember having this feeling that like I could go back to school if I wanted to, or I could not go back to school, and both were completely viable options, and I just had the capability to do whatever I wanted with my life. In a way, as cheesy as this sounds, it really did feel like that was the start of my life for me. It was a new beginning, and it made me feel like I was in control of who I was and what I could do with my future. More than anything, it made me imagine a future. It made me envision a future in my life. It was this extremely necessary step that needed to happen in order for me to survive. So I get really upset when people refer to it as an elective surgery because quite frankly, if I didn't have it, I don't think I would have survived. Don't get me wrong, my life is not perfect now. I still have severe mental health issues that I'm working through, and I have ups and downs like anybody else, but there isn't this part of my body that is contributing to all of that. The significance and the relief of pain and the emotional help that this surgery has given me has not left. That is still very much there, and I am eternally grateful for it. The thing that's probably most interesting to me is that I have a really hard time imagining that most of my life I spent not having had the surgery. I will just remember a random memory of my life like 2 or 3 years ago or whatever it was and think, oh my god, I had a penis back then. And it doesn't feel right. It doesn't feel true. It's so strange. It feels like this is how it's always been. It's so bizarre and hard to explain. I think you would imagine that for the first like few years after getting this surgery like this, it would feel very foreign and unfamiliar and would take a lot of getting used to, and it would be this whole different experience that you're having. But it actually felt like quite the opposite. Almost immediately after getting the surgery, I felt like normal. I felt like this was how I was supposed to always be. It felt like this was the setup that I was meant to have, and it's indescribable. It just felt like, okay, finally I'm back to where I was supposed to be. It was almost as if that was how I was born, and then I got transformed into a boy and had to work my way back to it, which is kind of how I try to describe the experience of being transgender, just as people who don't really get it. Like, just imagine, like if I'm talking to a cis woman, for example, imagine someone waved a magic wand and turned you into someone with a boy's body and voice, and then you would probably want to do all these things that would get back to how you looked and sounded before, right? Because that's how you know yourself, that's who you are, and that's how you're comfortable existing. So it was incredible, basically. That's the main theme of this video. It was incredible, it was necessary, it was life-changing, it saved my life. It's made me feel more like myself and more confident, and even if you go back and look at some of my older YouTube videos, my voice sounds different before the surgery. It was actually afterwards that I finally told myself I don't need to constantly actively be working on my voice anymore. Like, it sounds good. I let myself lower it a bit because I realized that felt more natural to me, but I still, you know, am always gendered correctly over the phone, so it's not something I have to worry about. I'm relatively comfortable with my voice. I still suffer from dysphoria sometimes, but it's like gives me this self-security that makes me feel it's okay to just kind of talk without thinking about how I'm sounding. I'm not as in my own head, I'm just more comfortable being me. So from my looks to my voice, to my ability to do things in the world and engage in social interactions and put myself out there, the confidence levels skyrocketed very quickly. For the longest time I couldn't really be in social situations, which was so funny because I was so looking forward to finding this new confidence that I had anticipated before the surgery to get. I was looking forward to going out with that and seeing friends that I hadn't seen in a while, which took a really long time, but recently after getting vaccinated and stuff, I have had the opportunity to see some old friends, and it has been amazing, and I do feel more like myself and more confident to interact with other people. I'm not as insecure. I don't get into little moods where I'm like, oh, do these people even like me, and I don't like myself, how can they like me, which used to happen a lot. Now I'm just kind of more comfortable being me. Because of the pandemic and having all this free time and stuff, I've also finally dedicated my time to acting, and I've taken a whole bunch of acting classes, and I've actually had a number of professional auditions and stuff since I started that, so it's become a very serious passion and pursuit of mine. It's always been a dream as I've been a kid to be a professional actor, but up until the pandemic started and having had this surgery, it was just that, and now I've actually put it into practice and I'm doing the things that I want to do and working towards doing it more consistently and more professionally. Now, I've gone over the majority of the psychological benefits and things that have happened since having the surgery, but I know there are going to be a lot of people who have clicked on this video, and probably a couple other of my videos, just to hear about the specifics of the functionality of it all. So this is for you. Now, I'm going to preface this by telling you, and I don't know quite how to put this delicately, this whole entire subject is going to be a little bit blunt, so I apologize. You know what you're getting yourself into. But pre-surgery, despite the effects of puberty, I really ignored everything that was going on down there. So I did not let myself enjoy the things that most actual teenage boys probably would have enjoyed. For me, it was an area of my body that I just wanted to kind of escape from and ignore because it gave me so much dysphoria. I couldn't even look at myself in the mirror, so I don't have much of a comparison of pre-surgery sexual experience to post-surgery sexual experience that some other people might be able to offer, but I can offer you my own experience. One of the main things that you're going to get warned about if you are getting this surgery is that there is a small chance that you will lose sensation down there and you won't be able to have a proper sexually pleasurable experience. I don't know off the top of my head the statistics of that. I believe it's quite low, but that's something they're gonna warn you because to many people that's like incredibly important. It's not that it was like super unimportant to me, but because beforehand I was too dysphoric to ever have any kind of pleasurable experience, I wasn't worried about it. They could have said to me, Boone, if you have this, you will have no sensation down there and you'll never be able to have any kind of sexual experience, and I would have said, okay, give me the surgery. Even if no one ever knew I had the surgery and it was just me and just I would know and I never have any kind of sexual experience, I would have gotten it in a heartbeat, because for me it was just me. I needed to be able to look myself in the mirror and be okay with it and just know that I had the parts down there that I knew I needed. And I can't explain how I knew I needed them. I just did. It was a physical, biological feeling that it wasn't right and it needed fixing. So I wasn't scared of that, and I know a lot of people are probably steered away from the surgery for that reason. I also know that there are probably a lot of trans women who can relate to what I'm saying and would have also gone into the surgery despite the possibility of losing function down there. For a really long time afterwards, I felt some numbness in my labia. I'm just gonna tell you flat out because I think all this stuff is really important for people to know, and I'm gonna be transparent about it. After my first 3 months checkup with my surgeon, he basically prescribed an orgasm. He wanted to make sure that there was sensation down there, so I gave it my best shot. Didn't work out, went back at it for a few different times every now and then. I couldn't really figure it out. So another thing I forgot to mention is that your ability to have an orgasm before the surgery will largely predict your ability to have one afterwards, or at least as what I have been told and have heard many times. So I kind of knew my odds going into it weren't fantastic, but again, I wasn't too worried about it. Without getting into the nitty-gritty, I will tell you that there has been success found in that area. It does in fact have full function. It works just as you need it to do. So yeah, it was a success, and you can listen to other trans women talk about this too. I know it's very taboo and no one really wants to talk about it, but it's important. And if you're considering this surgery and you're worried about that, there are statistics out there that will show you that the majority of people will rate satisfaction sexually after having the surgery. And you should know that, and you should deserve to know that my experience has been very good. And the biggest takeaway for me is that my relationship with my sexuality has healed a lot. Before, I was so deeply ashamed of it, and it caused me so much dysphoria, and now it just doesn't. Don't get me wrong, I still have a lot of internalized homophobia and I still have dysphoria, but as it pertains to me being physically aroused, it's not there anymore. Because I feel so comfortable with that part of my body, it actually kind of makes me feel more secure and comfortable in my womanhood. I am surprised to be saying this. I didn't know that would happen. I was worried that it wouldn't, but it's wonderful. It's wonderful to not have this burden of a body part that made me feel so horrible. It really did make me feel disgusted with myself and gross and reject parts of me, and I couldn't really feel like myself, and it held me back from so many things, not just sexually, but socially and mentally, and it stopped me from really being the person I wanted to be and following the things I was passionate about. It was just this big major barrier that's not there anymore. I'm keeping this relatively PG. I'm sharing much more than I ever thought I would share on the internet, but like I said, I think it's really important, so I think it's important to handle this maturely and just put it out there. And if you want to get more into the nitty-gritty of it, there's blogs online, you know, just do a quick Google search, trans woman post-op orgasm or whatever. You can hear people talking about it, and you can hear all about it and what the vagina looks like and how it compares to a cis vagina. There's tons of resources. My understanding is that it's almost identical in function and appearance, which is great, which is awesome, but if you want to really get into it, go out there, go look, go research, go on an incognito tab, whatever you need to do, it's out there. I can only share my own experiences. I hope it's helpful for some people. It's good for me to talk about it, because I think this just needs to be discussed more openly. People need to know what they're getting themselves into. They need to know the different things that can happen. They need to know about people's individual experiences. So here's mine. I guess overall, the biggest thing for me is I just feel more like myself than I ever have. And I've said that a lot in this video because it's true. It's true. As hard as things get, and don't get me wrong, my dysphoria gets horrible sometimes. It still does. There's a lot of problems that I had pre-surgery that are still there with my mental health, but there's not this one central big thing that makes it just unbearable. Such a weight has been lifted off, and it really gives me this hope that I never had before, that I can live a happy future. It's going to be tough, and there will always be challenges, and nothing's perfect, but I just feel more okay and more confident to live my life as who I am. I go out into the world now and feel more secure. I know what's down there. Pre-surgery, people may have assumed it was already down there. You know, I've been like passing for years now, but it's different. It's like now I pass to myself in a way. Which leads me to another thing. This surgery is not going to be desirable for every trans woman. It won't be, and that's completely fine. Some people won't be interested in it at all. They might not have any genital dysphoria. I know some trans women who don't have that. For other people, it may be desirable, but the pros don't outweigh the cons, and the potential risks and stuff are just too much, and they decide they'd rather just stick with what they got. And there will also be other people who, for medical reasons, can't get the surgery, and I'm really, really sorry. I feel incredibly grateful to have been able to get it. I know that not everyone can, and I'm really lucky, and I know that. I hope that no matter what your situation is, you are able to do what's right for you, or make peace of what is your reality. No matter what happens, and no matter what you choose, it's difficult. And I'm never going to pretend like any part of being transgender is easy, and this is absolutely no exception. But I want to reassure that things can get better, and that this surgery for me was one of the biggest, most important steps in getting better. It motivated me to get my mental health more on track, to get healthier as a person in order to be able to go through the procedure, and then the procedure gave me a lot to work with in terms of motivating me to stay healthy and to stay working towards being better in all aspects of life. This is a deeply personal video to make, and I'm sure there's a million things I haven't touched on that I could touch on because it's such a profound thing. But I think that I got out the majority of what I wanted to get out, and my hope is that this means something to somebody out there, that this is helpful, this is informative, and if you're thinking about getting the surgery, or have a surgery date already scheduled, or maybe you haven't even come to the terms with the fact that you're trans yet, I hope this is helpful for you. I hope this gives you some insight and offers some value to you, and I appreciate everyone very much for taking the time to watch. As always, stay safe. I hope you all are well. Thank you very much for watching, and I will see you next time.